Hi there. Today we're having a look at the steps required for your first assignment for Year 11 English and a bit of a look at an example of the script. So the first step was to analyse poems in class and identify the enduring message. You then needed to research songs and identify their enduring message and ensure that the poem and song that you have selected share the same message. You then needed to deconstruct your song and identify the criteria for classical poetry within it. You then need to construct your script with an introduction, 3 body paragraphs and conclusion. This should follow the structure that is outlined on your task sheet. Then you will need to proofread and edit this and submit your draft for feedback from your teacher. You then need to practice and be prepared to present your speech on the due date. The example we're about to have a look at is from 2015. Be aware that this does mean some of the things will have changed in this particular example and that your teacher may want you to do things a little bit differently for some of these things. The example we're looking at is comparing The Garden of Love by William Blake with Forever Young by Alphaville, looking at the enduring message being the idea of growth and fear of uncertainty when losing one's innocence. This example has been selected because the analysis was very detailed and relevant to the thesis. The links to thesis and enduring message were clear throughout. The referencing was impeccable. There were few grammatical errors. Quotes were contextualized in a way that was very effective, and the piece clearly identifies the criteria and how it exists across both texts. Be aware as you are having a look at this example that you need to have the structure from your criteria sheet with the scaffold there in order to give you more detail about what's required in each section. So the introduction begins with a general statement about the role of poetry and the definition of poetry. It then has a greeting for the audience. The introduction then goes on with a basic definition of classical poetry and the 5 criteria that a classical poem will contain. It then goes on to state the thesis about the fact that modern songs can be considered a form of classical poetry because they share the same 5 criteria. The introduction then goes on to mention the classical poem that is being studied and the modern song that it's being compared to. It then talks about the message, the shared theme that they both have, and finishes by listing the 3 criteria they have in common. The body paragraph starts off with a topic sentence that describes the criteria that they share. Keep in mind that if you were using figurative language, it wouldn't necessarily have to both be the same. It could be perhaps comparing a simile and symbolism. However, in this example, symbolism has been used in both. We then have an analysis of the poem first. You can see the quote, the example, and the analysis in detail here. Keep in mind that you don't necessarily need to use italics for your quotes here. Check that with your teacher if you're uncertain. We then have an analysis of the device in the modern song, and again quite a detailed analysis of that. And then the paragraph sums up the main point and links this to the thesis. Finally, the conclusion restates the thesis that has been argued, including mentioning the name of the modern song. It mentions the criteria again in what has been discussed and finishes with a final comment. As you are using these examples, make sure that you are not copying, that you are using them to clarify your own ideas and thoughts. Any plagiarism will not be accepted. Good luck.